steering box adjustments on Mercedes steering boxes, 1973 through 1991. Back with these guys again, the sector and the output shaft, and we're going to talk about their relationship. But first I need to tell you what models they came from. But before I do that, if you're new to this channel and you maybe have watched a few videos and you've gotten some useful information, why not subscribe to the channel? And if you haven't liked this video yet, you know, a lot of people ask for thousands of likes in their videos. I'm okay with a few likes, but just a few so I can know if the technical content is helping. I feel like a lot of people don't appreciate the technical content, but for those who really need it, they need it. So we're going to talk about some of this less exciting stuff occasionally on our channel. All right, this is the input, this is the output, and the input is the one that's a little bit more complicated, but we're going to talk about the two different adjustments on these steering boxes. The first adjustment is the more common one. Maybe some of you who've tried to adjust the steering box recognize this stud, this 10 millimeter stud that comes up through the top of the box that you back out to make the steering tighter or screw in to make it looser. This type of adjustment is typically favored by most people that are looking for an easy way to eliminate steering box play. But it does not resolve the underlying cause of play, which is play in the sector or the steering worm or the spiral ball race or whatever you want to call it. But we're going to talk about this guy first and what this adjustment does. So when you adjust this thing, this goes to the case of the box, and when you pull it up, it pulls this gear upward. What does this gear work with? This gear works with these gears. They literally fit together just like this. So in this case, it takes a lot of strength. The higher up you go, the more it sort of forces these guys to mesh together. But if you go too far, it causes hunting behavior because the sector's too loose and this becomes too tight. And so instead of it flowing with the box, it'll get locked in a direction, go that way. Then you have to correct it. It'll get locked in the other direction, go that way. And the car becomes a handful to steer. And so one of the ways that you can deal with this problem is by adjusting the sector input. And believe me, this is not easy. So first of all, this needs to be in the box. Everything needs to be assembled. Okay, this fits into this plate. Sorry. This fits into this plate. This goes up through the case. This unscrews and then it just bloop, drops out the bottom. Straight out. Try to make sure that these two are centered. So you want to have 3 and 3. The middle one and the middle one have to line up. They won't self-align. Now, when we're adjusting this thing, first of all, you've got this nut. I think it's 65 millimeters. You can get a really big adjustable wrench. You can get a 65 millimeter wrench. Some of these are 72 millimeters, depending on the application. I think on the 108 and 109 cars, they were actually, were they smaller or bigger? I can't remember. I think they were smaller, but there were different sizes of sector nut. There's a trick though. You can lock this in your vise and then on the end of this shaft put a jack handle over it and literally use the jack handle as the wrench and loosen it up. So once you do that, once you get this nut loose, you have to start. They make a special tool for this, by the way, that has 2 little pins in it, but they make expandable pin wrenches. You can start turning this thing in and out to eliminate sector play. And as you can see, like this sector actually does not have that much play. But the thing that we find is that as the sectors wear, you'll get a dead spot here where you turn it and you don't feel anything, and then you feel it engage. You turn it a few degrees and then you start to feel it engage. And the more you turn this nut in, the less play there is. The thing you have to remember is if you turn the nut in too far, it starts to bind. But you want to tighten this thing to where there's almost no play. Okay, when I say almost no play, I mean you've got about 1 or 2 degrees of free play. Then you tighten the nut. When you tighten this nut down, it's going to take away the rest of the play because it's going to turn this just a little bit. It's going to cinch it down a few more degrees. And then you go back and check for play. If you feel any play, you have to go through and adjust it again. It's a trial and error process. Nobody said it was easy, but it is doable with tools at home. You don't have to be some, crazy Mercedes tool collector like me. When you take that nut loose, you need to mark the position of everything. Everything needs to be marked, but you could take this out and change the O-ring on it if it's leaking. Once you've done the sector adjustment, you're sure there's no play, then you can do this guy. The steering box, height, output shaft gear adjustment. And a lot of the time, people who do this without doing that end up with a binding box and hunting. You've got to adjust this first. Take away the play in the sector before you start doing the output shaft. Is it easy? No, but you'll end up with a much better driving car. You could take your 350,000 mile steering box and make it feel like it has 50,000 miles again. But everything's got to be tight and can't be over tightened. You have to get everything just right. Now people ask me, how do I know if it's tightened properly? Because you don't want to feel any free play. This thing, you want the sector, you want no free play. This you will have to adjust in the car. Even if you have a 107 or a 126 V8 car and it's a pain in the butt, this will ultimately end up getting adjusted as you drive the car, as you get road feel. There you go. All right, so I hope you found this video useful. I know it's a little complicated. It's over some people's heads, but the few of you that watch this, that actually get it and understand the concept I'm trying to convey about setting up your steering box will benefit from it. And you shouldn't be afraid to try to adjust things. Okay, the worst case scenario is if you mark everything right, you can go back to where you were before. If you don't feel like marking stuff, you're going to be lazy about it, well, sorry, that's not going to work. But there is a way to make your steering box feel like new without sending it out to get rebuilt or I often find that rebuilt steering boxes, such as the ones from Maval, there's a great example of a company that can't do anything right. Come back, they're painted gray, they're nondescript, you don't know how many miles are on them, you don't know how they felt before. Setting up a box where you don't have any road feel input prior to is a nightmare. It's awful because you don't know what you're dealing with before. How are you going to get it right after? I find that the best box is the one that you can actively diagnose before you make any adjustments. You can write down how much free play you have in the center. You can write whether it hunts or not. You can write how many turns out you made the pitman arm before it started to make a difference. There are all kinds of potential things you can do to improve the way that the steering feels. So that's the point of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope to see you guys here in the future, and I hope that if you're struggling with steering box issues on your 1970s or 80s Mercedes, this will help you deal with them. See you guys in the next video. Thanks.